the breathing is so important. All of my classes that I teach in Jiu-Jitsu start with breathing. I don't do typical warm-ups. I don't have you running in circles around a mat. I don't have you shrimping up and down the mat. I don't have you doing back rolls and front rolls or any of that. We literally start class by laying on our backs and breathing for about 5 minutes. And I try to tell people, if you can just learn to breathe, it's going to help you in some of the toughest positions you'll ever be in Jiu-Jitsu. And there's a calmness when you slap and bump with someone in Jiu-Jitsu and you just have complete control of your breath. It's signaling to someone, it almost makes them panic a little bit that you're so calm and so in control of your ability to breathe. So that's a huge portion of it.
Welcome to Forever White Belt. I'm your host, Adolfo Ferranda. In this episode, we have the pleasure of speaking with Alan Titone, a multifaceted individual whose journey spans over 2 decades in corporate America, a distinguished tenure as an international yoga instructor, and a dedicated role as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach and an academy owner. Alan is the co-founder of Karma Jiu-Jitsu, a newly opened academy that reflects his deep passion for Jiu-Jitsu and community building, which he has established as a purple belt. Alan's commitment to personal growth and wellness is evident through his ventures, including co-founding Breathe Social, an initiative that seamlessly integrates yoga, breathwork, and cold exposure to promote holistic well-being. Beyond his professional endeavors, Alan is a U.S. Army veteran and an accomplished adventurer, having summited some of the tallest peaks in the contiguous United States, and in 2024 reaching the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. In our conversation, Alan delves into his transition from a former corporate career to a life dedicated to coaching and teaching. He shares insights into the importance of accountability, the transformative power of yoga, and the life lessons gleaned from his experience on and off the mat, a true embodiment of resilience, adaptability, and the relentless pursuit of one's passions. And with that, I give you Alan Titone. Alan, welcome to the show, man.
It is so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. The first time I became aware of you, it was my first Globetrotters camp. So for you listeners out there, I'm sure you've listened to the show, or if you haven't, I talk about this camp all the time. It's a very unique sort of jiu-jitsu camp. And I think at that time you were doing a side mat chat kind of thing, mainly for I can't recall, maybe a coaching or a mindset type of talk. And I missed the damn talk because they have so many incredible sessions. And but I came in sort of toward the end of it, and I grabbed this piece of paper, and on the paper was some sort of almost a template that you put on. But then I kind of fell into the Alan world, where you became this sort of recurring person at the camps that I would see. I've only been to, I think, 2 or 3, but you were there. And I recall the first time I saw you, you weren't the biggest guy, at that time, a kind of pencil neck, sort of nerdy geek. No, I'm just kidding. And
no, it's true.
You didn't have the quads that you do now. And now you're just like, and I'm like, this guy, what the hell is, you went on quite the journey. So enough about me rambling about you and how interesting observing your progression has been, as well as in jiu-jitsu, which we'll also get to. Please tell the listener who you are and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. My name, again, is Alan Titone, and my journey is honestly, when I look back at it, quite remarkable to myself. I'm like, how the hell did I do that? Because you're right. I look back at photos or videos, and I am that pencil neck nerd. I'm 41, and you might be familiar with the show The Wonder Years. And Paul was the main guy's best friend, and he had asthma and allergies. He was allergic to everything, big dorky glasses. And my friends called me Paul from The Wonder Years growing up, because that was me. And over time, I got into yoga, I got into fitness. Then I started jiu-jitsu, started lifting weights a ton, and built who I am today and where I'm at. And I just continue to grow and get better.
That's quite a journey, going from how you described yourself as being this stereotypical sort of nerd with all these autoimmune type of things, these health concerns. I know I've read that you had some pretty severe asthma, and you would carry around a nebulizer and all this kind of crazy stuff. Or I shouldn't say crazy, because it's fairly normal now, unfortunately, for a lot of children and people, I would say. It takes a big step to go to the next thing, especially in life when someone like yourself or a lot of the listeners and viewers out there they're told constantly that, you have to be careful, you're compromised or et cetera, et cetera. And then you're going into jiu-jitsu, you're going into weightlifting, yoga. What was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak?
I'm not sure there was a point in adulthood. It was more so as a child. My asthma was really out of control. Like you said, I had a nebulizer. We called it my machine that I would have to like go on to help get medicine in and help me breathe. But I just got to the point as a child where I was like, I got to see all these kids playing sports and throwing the football and doing all these things. And I was like, I'm not going to be limited by this. It's not a thing. I don't know what it was. I just agreed that that's not happening. And there would be times I'd be out playing with friends and all of a sudden I couldn't breathe. I'd have a rescue inhaler on me. I'd have to run home to take my machine. And then I'd run back out and start playing again. And my parents moved us from New York City at the time to Arizona. And just over time, I needed both the inhaler and the nebulizer less and less. And I don't know what it was. There wasn't anything really drastic that changed other than the place I was living. And I got to the point where I didn't need it anymore. And knock on wood, I haven't used a nebulizer in ages and decades. And I have a rescue inhaler still, but I haven't used that in quite some time. That's more of just like a safe, hey, this thing still exists. Maybe it'll be good to have it on site. It's sort of like an EpiPen for someone allergic. But I was like, this isn't going to limit me. And that's sort of the attitude I've taken with everything. I ended up joining the military. I was in the Army and I went into the gas chamber. When you're in the Army, they put you in the gas chamber you have to take your mask off. That was fun. I've run triathlons. I've done as far as Olympic distance triathlons. I hiked Kilimanjaro this year, and I don't know how I did that, one, because I had a whoop strap. If you're familiar with the whoop strap, I had one of those at the time, and it was monitoring my sleep, and it was like night 3, we were at 15,000 feet sleeping, and then I get this big like red alert from my Whoop app saying like your blood oxygen is low. So, yeah, I don't know that there was any ever really like a tipping point. More so, it was just like, that isn't going to be me. I'm not going to let this hinder my life or the life that I can live, and be it stubbornness, right? Maybe that's it, because I also see that coming through in many other aspects of my life, where just sort of my stubbornness is like, it's what keeps me going and keeps me moving forward.
How did you fall in love with jiu-jitsu? I know you were a fan, or you did karate for quite some time.
As a kid, I did karate. I got all the way to my purple belt in Okinawan Kempo. It was awesome growing up. I got to learn to play with nunchucks and sais and all the weapons of the Ninja Turtles. That was always fun. And then it fell off. I sort of lost my way out of martial arts and didn't find my way back until my 30s. And I was going to a physical therapist. It was right during this big transformational shift of building muscles and taking care of myself. I had 2 herniated discs, and and again, right, my stubbornness of like, I'm not going to let this affect me. How do I get better? And all avenues pointed to becoming stronger, right? If you can make your muscles stronger, you can support your spinal column and things just sort of get better. And that's sort of how it happened for me.
That's interesting, because when they talk about herniated discs, they tell you don't squat.
Yeah, don't squat, don't deadlift, don't lift heavy. It's really wild. I have L4, L5 herniation, which is lower back. And I was always told, yeah, no, don't do any of these big heavy lifts. And I was at a point where I hit my heaviest deadlift over 500 pounds, which is no small feat. And again, it's more of, you told me not to do it. And my mother always says that, right? Like, yeah, don't tell Alan no, because once you tell Alan no, he's going to do it. So I started down that journey. My physical therapist, she's a sports therapist. Shout out to Nicole Fox. She got me on the right path. She was like, no, you need to be doing squats. You need to be doing single leg split squats. You need to activate your glutes. And at the time, there was the physical therapy assistant there by the name of Jake. And he started talking about jiu-jitsu. And he's like 23 years old. I'm in my 30s. I'm working a corporate job. And I'm like, what's this kid talking about, right? Whatever, jiu-jitsu. I've heard Joe Rogan mention it a few times, but every time I'm there, he just won't shut up about it like people in jiu-jitsu do, right? And finally, he was like, you should come try a class. And I'm like, whatever. And it's sort of the rest is history, but I went and tried a class, and I was like, oh, I like this. This is interesting. And I dove headfirst into it, and I spent the first 6 months getting double armbarred inside closed guard. Still don't know how that happened. But yeah, and then I just continued to go down the path of meeting incredible people through the sport. Went to my first camp in Arizona, and really, I've heard people say jiu-jitsu saved my life. I don't know that there was anything for me to be saved. For me, it absolutely changed my life. It gave me confidence in who I was. It opened and expanded my friendships internationally. I've spent the last 2 years, I don't even know how many days traveling the world doing jiu-jitsu, meeting cool people, sleeping on couches, sleeping in gyms. I met my wife through jiu-jitsu. I got married at a jiu-jitsu camp. So it's all the things that have happened in my life as of late are thanks to jiu-jitsu and the community involved.
I know that you have also a coaching business as well, or one aspect of sort of services, I should say, that you provide is coaching. And I read that you were trained under Josh Janis, his friend of the show's My Odyssey certification. I'm sure you have other experience as well outside of My Odyssey, I would assume. But how has coaching in jiu-jitsu sort of, one informed the other, if they have at all?
Yeah, a lot of what I do in coaching is mindset based. And that applies both on the mats and off the mats. And I can't tell you how many folks, adults and children, that I work with, whether it be specifically for jiu-jitsu or to help them grow their business, help them start a business, help them get married, help them get divorced, right? Help them see the life that is available to them and what they want. And the coaching personally and professionally definitely coincides with jiu-jitsu, because with jiu-jitsu, you're interacting with people, and they're not just exclusive to jiu-jitsu. As you've met, right? Like lawyers, doctors, engineers, right? Like you name it, they're all on the mats, and they have lives, and they have goals, and alcoholics, and former drug addicts, and right? Like you name it, and it runs the gamut. And on the mats, it's the great equalizer, and we're all the same. And what's really cool is I'm able to share my knowledge about mindset and the things that I've learned with Josh. Josh is one of my amazing friends. I've done a lot with him on way of coaching. We've also built a business together, Breathe Social, where ice baths and yoga. We've done a lot together in the sense of bringing mindset, jiu-jitsu, coaching all together in one package.
What is Karma Jiu-Jitsu? Forgive me if I'm not representing it correctly. It's Jiu-Jitsu plus Buddhism?
Yeah. So Karma Jiu-Jitsu, as you see, I have a shirt on. Karma Jiu-Jitsu is not karate. That's some of our marketing antics that we're up to. But I'm a big reader. I was reading the Tibetan book of Living and Dying, and in there it talks a lot about karma and what karma is and how it's latent in all of our actions. And karma, it gets a bad rap because people just think it's like, oh, bad karma. Oh, like I'm wishing you bad karma. Or, oh, bad karma is going to get you. And that's part of it, but karma just is, right? Like for every reaction, there's a reaction. For every thing that you do or don't do, there is a consequence in that. And whether it be positive or negative, that's just judgment. You do something else happens because of it. So we read that in January, and instantly that was it. Both Rachel and I were like, Karma Jiu-Jitsu, that's the name of our school. That's the name of what we're trying to do. And we set out to open our own school. We've been working on it since January. We started making rash guards and shorts, and people started buying those from us, and that was really cool. And then the universe, I say this often, the universe is conspiring to get me everything I want in life. Out of nowhere, this space opened up. It was like the perfect space for a gym. A friend sort of pointed out mats that were for sale, and we ended up getting them for more than 50% the cost of new mats, and these mats were only 8 months old. Everything just fell into place. And October 1st, we opened our doors to Karma Jiu-Jitsu.
Congratulations. That's amazing. I had no idea.
Yeah, we are affiliated through BJJ Globetrotters as well as Cicero Costa out of Brazil. So we have a really good affiliation both on the competition side, where we're getting really good knowledge. We're getting really good people to come in and help teach us and learn jiu-jitsu. But we're also through the no politics nonsense of Globetrotters and having the resources like the Globetrotters in Action Library and all of the people that we get to meet around the world. Our goal isn't just jiu-jitsu. I often say jiu-jitsu is not about jiu-jitsu, because it got me my wife. It got me the life that I love. It got me everything that I've ever wanted and continues to. And we want to spread that through free community programs. We offer open mats like most gyms. We offer free competition classes for youth. We're providing as many free resources to our members as we can. The goal is to just create a social network and give people the same confidence that I got from it and the same confidence that Rachel got from it.
Who's head instructor at your academy then?
I love that question. There is no head instructor. It is Rachel is the owner technically, right? We're married, so we're both owners. We also have a black belt, really good friend, Steve Dion. He's one of our instructors too. Often in classes, we co-teach. Steve has a set day that he teaches, but we're there often. Rachel and I, we teach, and oftentimes we're just co-teaching. We have little nuggets that we've both picked up from around the world doing jiu-jitsu. And the way that I've built my jiu-jitsu is traveling the world, invested in those Globetrotters camps. I used to travel a lot for my corporate job. I'd go to gyms here, there, everywhere. And I'd pick up little nuggets. And now I'm at the point where it's like, where did I learn that from? I can't give credit to everyone. But what we want to do is teach these advanced concepts to as many people as possible with giving as much detail and information that we can. And we do that through co-teaching, right? Like we have an idea of what we're teaching in a week. But as we think of what needs to be added to that or how we can elaborate on it, it's all of us. So we're all the head coaches, but none of us are the head coaches, if that makes sense.
But what belts are you and your wife?
So Rachel is a brown belt and I am a purple belt. And then again, Steve is a black belt. Yeah.
And where is your gym? In what city is this?
So it's in Ajax, Ontario in Canada. So it is about 45 minutes outside of Toronto, where the jiu-jitsu community is just thriving.
You're an American, correct?
Absolutely. U.S. passport and all.
So you're saying Canada. So I'm assuming your wife is Canadian?
Yes. Yep. Rachel and I met at the Globetrotters main camp.
And by Maine, Alan means M-A-I-N-E, the state.
Yeah, I actually think it's a USA camp is what it's called. We met there, and the January before, I had finalized my divorce. I had left my job, my corporate job that I was in for 22 years. And sold my house and sort of like got rid of everything. People say it's a midlife crisis. I call it a midlife awakening. It was the most life-changing event for me, and it led me to her.
Now, I know that you are very experienced in yoga, and I'm curious about how you integrate yoga with jiu-jitsu training and even your instruction or learning and everything and combining the two disciplines.
Yoga is really important to me, especially the aspect of breathwork. When we think of yoga in the Western culture, we think of one of 8 of the limbs of it, which is like the physical movement and like the poses, the postures, the warrior ones, the warrior twos, that type of thing. Going to a studio and doing the moves, right? That's what we think of as yoga. Meanwhile, there's 7 other limbs of yoga. But for me, with jiu-jitsu, it is definitely some of the movement, right? Some of the ability to stretch and become more limber and understand how our bodies work. The breathing is so important. All of my classes that I teach in jiu-jitsu start with breathing. I don't do typical warm-ups. I don't have you running in circles around a mat. I don't have you shrimping up and down the mat. I don't have you doing back rolls and front rolls or any of that. We literally start class by laying on our backs and breathing for about 5 minutes. And I try to tell people, if you can just learn to breathe, it's going to help you in some of the toughest positions you'll ever be in jiu-jitsu. And there's a calmness when you slap and bump with someone in jiu-jitsu and you just have complete control of your breath. It's signaling to someone, it almost makes them panic a little bit that you're so calm and so in control of your ability to breathe. So that's a huge portion of it. And then also mindset. Yoga has a lot to do with mindset. And with coaching, with yoga, with jiu-jitsu, I'm trying to get people to believe in themselves. And if I can get you to believe in yourself, you can accomplish anything else that's in front of you.
Yeah, I find that psychology plays such a huge role in life, right? Even this podcast, what I've noticed is when I distill everything down, people have interviewed me, I'm like, so much of it just comes down to psychology. Sure, there are techniques and stuff like that, but yeah, there's all the psychology involved as well.
It's huge. And now I'm getting into, you might have heard about like the ecological approach and the ecological dynamics, right? Like there's the whole devil's advocate side of it. I don't know that it's the only way. And I feel like it's being treated as like a religion right now. It's very divisive. Like it's either ecological or not. And to me, it's like, why not both? And right, to say that ecological is the only way, well, we have Gordon Ryan, right? Like that was before we were talking ecological dynamics and all that. So for me, it's been more about studying the psychology of learning and how adults learn and how kids learn. And for us at our gym and at Karma Jiu-Jitsu, what we talk about is playing Jiu-Jitsu. We play Jiu-Jitsu because there's psychology that comes with play. There's a great book by Dr. Stuart Brown. It's called Play. And it talks just about that. For kids, the development of the brain with play is insane. Kids that play with their hands, get out there and whether it be working on cars or building Legos or doing any and all things with their hands, prove to be better engineers. And the whole STEM orientation, right? Like the STEM side of schools and business, they're starting to see that psychology and play have a real big impact. And like the ability to get lost in time versus just like, oh, study this one move. And this is how I teach is let's play games. And some people are like, oh, it's ecological, but I don't, right? Like, again, I feel like there's bad connotation to that now. There's good and bad connotation to it. Whereas like, we just want to play games. Like the last 3 weeks, we've been playing half guard. How do we play half guard? I don't know. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's remove the knee shield. Let's put the knee shield back in, right? Let's move the knee shield around. What happens when we control the crossface arm? Let's just play jiu-jitsu and let's teach ourselves jiu-jitsu. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
I have a technical background, and a lot of it was involved in when we had like agile training and team building training and that type of stuff. And they would integrate the use of Legos, like playing with Legos of all things for learning and team building and all this stuff. I mean, you're playing Legos, so to speak,
As a grown man, right?
Yeah, as a grown man. So yeah, playing is awesome, man.
It really is. And what really even pushed me further to playing, again, I love teaching kids jiu-jitsu, but what I really saw was when these kids would just do this weird, wacky, zany stuff on the mats. Nothing that was ever taught to them, nothing that was ever taught to me, and it would work. And I'd be like, wait a second. And what's good with our experience comes the ability to implement new stuff quickly if we see something. So I get to see these kids just doing this weird stuff, what we label as weird stuff, and be like, wait a second. That didn't work, but I think there might be a way for it to work. And I'm learning constantly from these kids. I was teaching scissor sweep to 7-year-olds and teaching it in like the sort of the old fashioned way, right? Like hip out, knee in, chop, right? Cut like a scissor. And out of comfort, one of the girls, a 7-year-old girl, her foot just sort of went into like a butterfly type hook to do the scissor sweep. And I was like, oh, that's not, and I was about to say, that's not right. Let's fix that. And I was like, wait a second. Why isn't that right? And I'm like, that works. And I called Rachel over and I'm like, let me try something. And I played with it and I'm like, that absolutely works. And in front of, 10 kids, 7 to 12 years old, I'm like, I want to apologize to this girl because I was about to tell her something didn't work and it did. And here she is teaching me something. And I'm like, we're here to learn from everyone. And every kid sort of had like this like dumbfounded look on his face. Like, did an adult just admit they were wrong to a child and like apologize? What's going on here? And I think we need more of that because these kids are creative and there's so much cool shit to learn from children who aren't boxed into the way we've learned jiu-jitsu or the way we've learned anything. Never mind, right? Jiu-jitsu is not about jiu-jitsu. The way we've learned to do anything. Let's get creative in it. How do we act more like that 7-year-old kid that's in us all and play Legos as grown men while we're doing agile training?
Another thing I'm curious about is like, how do you handle or even coach people on and off the mat about when we hit what we perceive as plateaus?
Yeah, just keep going. That's all I can say for plateaus is, right? You just keep going. You just keep showing up because what we feel is a plateau is actually just more movement in a direction. And maybe you feel like it's a plateau because it got hard. Well, if it's hard, are you on a plateau? If it's hard, you're likely going up. Or if you think of it in a mountain aspect, climbing Kilimanjaro, the flat part, right, which is what a plateau is, the flat part isn't difficult. There might be slow progress happening, and that's understandable, right? But it's getting through that slow progress, and maybe you do reach this like plateau of like this flat point, but then all of a sudden there's a bear there, and you have to deal with this bear, right? You do run into obstacles and instances along the way. Just keep going. How do we get through the belt system in jiu-jitsu? Not that it means a whole lot of anything, but how do we get through it? We just keep showing up. I mean, you've been injured, I'm sure. That's the game, is you just keep showing up, and you show up when you're injured, and you do what you can. And there's days where you're feeling amazing. And then there's days where you feel like you know jiu-jitsu. There's days when you feel like you don't. And then off the mats, there's days where you feel like you know what you're doing. And then there's a lot of days that you don't. And one of the big things I tell my clients off the mat, and I used to say this a lot in my yoga classes, was if you meet someone who tells you they know what they're doing, they're a fucking liar, right? But this is our first day being this old, doing this thing, right? We maybe have some idea of what has happened in the past, and we might be trying to let the past dictate our future, but we have no clue, right? Like, I have no clue what I'm doing, especially like I've been told, go work a corporate job, work for your 2 weeks of vacation, get health care. I've been told all those, you need a 401k, you need all those things. That was like the life I was sold. I haven't worked in 2 years. I don't have any of those things. I don't work for my vacation. I just live a life that sometimes I'm located here and sometimes I'm located somewhere else. Is that a vacation? Oh. Most of my life's pretty fun, and I'm pretty happy, and there's stress that's involved, but I just keep going. I just started getting into country music. This is a country song. It's sort of corny, but it's, if you're going through hell, keep on going. And that's the name of the song, and that's basically the lyrics. It's like, why would you stop there? Why would you stop? And sometimes, right, like, let me address that, because sometimes it's way easier said than done. And at the height of my divorce, holy shit, like, I don't even know how to explain it. People were like, are you okay? And I'd be like, yeah. And they would be like, are you sure? And I'm like, why are they asking that? I'm fine. And when I look back, it's like, yikes, I wasn't good. I wasn't great. But I did just keep going. And I just kept showing up to jiu-jitsu, and I kept showing up to life. And there were days where I did not want to get out of bed. Absolutely self-diagnosed depression, right? Like, sort of had to like pull myself out of bed, so to speak. But when you have some cool people in your life who check up on you and, challenge you, and the Josh Janices of the world, the Rich Sabs, some of my best friends, right? Now my wife, I'm super grateful for these people who've sort of told me to keep going. We have a saying in our house. So, right, I'm married. I have 2 kids. And the saying in our household and the saying at our gym is figure it out. You can accomplish much of life if you just try to figure it out. Again, none of us know how to really do something or how to really do anything. Again, we have past experiences that make us believe we can do things, but that's not stopping us from doing new things, cool, fun things.
Advice for like older practitioners. What would you say to like older adults starting or continuing in jiu-jitsu? And are there like approaches or adjustments that you recommend for like longevity or something?
First, right, like try to relax, right? It's easier said than done. Try to relax. You're gripping too tight. You're trying to use all of your strength, and it's not going to work. And show up to class, train 2 to 3 times a week. Max, don't burn yourself out. Some of us, like myself, who are quite obsessive, we want to just train 5-6 days a week, and you're going to end up injured, and then you're going to end up missing out on even more than you would have learned. You're going to get injured. We all get injured in this sport. Just look at it as a diversion on the path and show up to class when you're injured, whether it be to sit out and just watch or participate where you can, how you can, just drill, communicate feedback with your training partners. If they're going too heavy or, too hard or too soft, if you want more resistance, right, communicate that. I think that's really important. And what we're missing a lot of is the ability to just tell our training partners what we want and need, especially for women in the sport. Please set boundaries for yourself, and size does matter, right? I just taught class today. Had a 270-pound guy in my class, and he's like solid muscle. The guy could literally pick me up and throw me around if he really wanted to, and I'm grateful. He's still a white belt, but for some reason he's body aware, and he knows not to do that to me. And I'm super grateful for that. So, and just keep showing up. Don't worry about the belts. They all say that, but the belts will change color eventually. You'll eventually get there. And then the last one is, if you are in a gym and they're telling you not to cross train, I used to think it was the gym's problem, but then I'm like, wait a second, you're an adult, right? Like, I no longer believe that's the gym's issue. If you're letting a gym tell you not to cross train, not to go to other gyms, you're absolutely in the wrong gym, right? Switch gyms, find a gym that promotes you, that wants you to cross train, that wants you to go find good jiu-jitsu and bring it back. The jiu-jitsu that I teach, I learned this from Preet, but break my shit. Please, if I teach you something, come back to me and tell me why it doesn't work and show me that it doesn't work so that I know, and then we can see if there's answers to make it better.
Of course, iterate and improve, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. My analogy is always like, as a grown adult, I should never have to ask to go get a drink of water or use the restroom.
100%. I was at a gym where the guy tried telling me I couldn't take a drink of water. And I was like, excuse me? Like, I'm going to get a drink of water.
Yeah, those days should be long gone.
Yeah.
But Alan, could you give me an example of an aha moment that you've experienced in relation to jiu-jitsu?
I have two that I think of immediately. The first one, I was teaching a kids class when I was a blue belt. And it was the end of class, and we were all lining up. The kids were lining up, and one of the kids just had this big smile on his face. And I looked at him like, what are you smiling for? And he said, I have to have a reason to smile? And I just stood there and looked at him like, fucking A. Like, if that's not a lesson to learn, I don't know what is. Like, I have to have a reason to smile? Like, yeah. Other than that, jiu-jitsu related, I would say it's actually a concept that I've just realized as of recent, and I've been working it out loud, talking with upper belts about it. And it's this idea that as a white belt, we come in and we want to do the thing. We want to do the arm bar. We want to do the choke, the strangle, whatever it is. But really, when you get to the upper level, and this isn't just me saying this, but a couple black belts I've been talking with, they're like, yeah, pretty much a purple belt, right? Like you're at the upper belt level, you sort of know what you're doing, and most rounds are pretty technical. And jiu-jitsu becomes about control, and it doesn't become about the submission, because if you watch two highly skilled jiu-jitsu practitioners, they're just looking to gain more control. And if you can gain slightly more control than the other person, you're winning. Right? And ultimately, the game is total control. If I can gain total control of you, that's the point where I can then choose to submit you. And so that concept of, and I'm trying to teach what makes black belts to white belts, right? Instead of teaching techniques and step-by-step movements, it's, well, quit trying to get an arm bar. You can't even get to the position that you need to be in to do an arm bar. Why would you try to do an arm bar? Let's learn how to control, and let's try to teach white belts to play the same game the upper belts are playing. And I don't know if it's working or not yet, but that's just something that's really been in my mind lately. It's really about control. It's two people going at it, trying to control each other, eventually losing control. And Rich Saab, he likes to say jiu-jitsu doesn't work. And that's because, you look at a jiu-jitsu match, someone's trying something they learned, it doesn't work. And the other person, right, because they have the counter. And you're constantly just going back and forth until, boom, something does work. And you're like, oh, there it is. Got it.
I love that you mentioned control, because that's actually been the theme of my jiu-jitsu for the past, 6 months or something like that, because I'm one of those guys that just, I started primarily in the gi. So now I've just fallen in love with no gi for quite some time. So now I have to work on all the leg stuff, right? And I was thinking the exact same thing as you mentioned. Oh, I got to get this heel hook. I just got to get the heel hook. And now I'm realizing it's control, right? And a lot of it is control, as well as, your standard upper body jiu-jitsu as well. When I think of control now, I think, who's done this forever? And it's wrestling, right? And so the entire game is control, right? So it's of the utmost importance to recognize and develop that mindset and everything that's involved with it.
Absolutely. And if you look at, right, some of these high-level leg lockers, practitioners, yeah, you can go for the heel hook, but you're likely not going to get it. Right? They're starting to control more of the other leg, control the hips, right? Control rotation. Again, it goes back to just finding more ways to create boundaries or control. But then there's also control in chaos. It's this idea that, right, like my opponent or my teammate wants to go that way, wants to go to the left or the right. Well, let him. I'm just going to help you go more that way than you want to go.
Can you tell me a time that you may have considered quitting and why?
Definitely as a white belt when I injured my rib. I don't know if we've all had rib injuries. It's still not the same. So you can actually still see where it was injured. I think it is the white belt injury. And It actually happened right at COVID. So the time that I took off for my rib injury was the perfect amount of time that we weren't allowed to train. And I healed, and I was like, oh, I'm probably not going back, right? I'm a middle-aged man, right? I got a life. I can't be being injured all the time like this. But yeah, no, I got off that train real quick, and I was like, no, I'm going to go back to this. And then there was times at like early blue belt where you're just like, I suck at jiu-jitsu, right? Where like you get that blue belt put on, and you're like, I think I'm good at jiu-jitsu, and then you realize everyone was holding back. And so it was just like, I don't know if I still want to do this, right? What is it, the blue belt blues? But yeah, now I can't ever foresee that being a thing with just the social aspect alone.
Right. So what are your future goals in jiu-jitsu? Do you have any like personal goals with jiu-jitsu that you're pursuing? You have the academy now, but anything like your own like belt progressions or competitions, areas of techniques that you want to master?
The belts are whatever. At this point to me, I know I'll get a black belt, right? Just because I keep showing up. It's not like a cocky thing. It's just I don't know, what is it? If you're going to be stupid, you better be tough type of thing. So I'm just going to keep showing up, and I'm sure one day I'll have a black belt. But even then, I'm just going to keep showing up after that. As far as I'm really loving arm bars right now, but what I'm really loving is I'm trying to break jiu-jitsu. That is my ultimate goal right now, is the things that we were taught. Why were we taught that way? And then why don't they work? And I think this plays a lot into the ecological form of teaching. And when you're rolling and when you see things, it doesn't happen the way that we were taught, right? We're all taught the white belt armbar, right? Legs over the head and chest, and right, like grab the arm, thumb up. That's very basic. And why were we taught that way? Does it work? Sure. But I think there's better ways to learn and better ways to understand. If you understand the concepts of things and why they work, that's really what my goal is. So it's twofold. It's trying to break jiu-jitsu more for me, but then also teaching those that allow me to teach them why breaking it, or why the way that, and it's not wrong. The way that we learned isn't wrong. It's only half truth, right? Because the way that we learned, it works, but it's only half the truth, because it also works other ways. And I want to create a community. I want to have an impact the way that Christian Graugart of BJJ Globetrotters has made an impact, just in my way.
Speaking of like goals, can you talk about this 1,000-mile motorcycle ride?
Yeah, that was fun. I love riding motorcycles. I've ridden motorcycles since I was a kid, dirt bikes, and then got motorcycles as I was a young adult, and I continue to ride. I've ridden everything from the sports bikes to Harleys and dirt bikes, you name it. And I just love being on two wheels and being out on the open road. This goes back to, right, this like corporate person that I was. And right, I always talked about, I'll ride up to the Pacific Coast Highway in California. Right, start from where, like San Diego, and just all the way up to Washington until it ends. And I never did that. Talked about riding motorcycles in Ireland. That never happened. And, just quote, life got in the way. And finally I was just like, after all the changes that I made, the confidence that I had, I think a lot of it was like self-limiting beliefs of like, riding a motorcycle 1,000+ miles, like it's a lot. And you have to be open to what's to come from that. And I just said, fuck it, I'm just gonna go. And I literally, I was like, I'm just gonna go. And I got on my motorcycle. I had a backpack and a tank bag, and whatever fit, I made sure a gi fit and a no gi. So I had a gi kit and a no gi kit, and then anything else that fit around that is what fit. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go ride a motorcycle and meet cool people and train and talk to strangers, do all the things that I was told as a kid not to do. I'm going to go do that as an adult, right? And, ask strangers for candy specifically, right? Like, hey, do you have any candy? And it was so cool. Minus the tornadoes. That was not cool. Yeah, I was driving through South Dakota, and thankfully, like, I was getting pelted by rain, and like, I was able to find a hotel, and then these tornadoes rolled through, and it was like, again, the universe is conspiring to give me everything I want. And it might not look like that initially when you're on the outside. You're like, why is this happening? Right? When bad things happen, or quote, bad things are just judgment. When things are happening, you might not realize it, but that thing is leading you to what you want. And it was sort of like a forced rest day. right? I had been going strong for like 3 days at that point, covering a lot of miles. I don't even remember how many a day on my motorcycle. And it was just like a forced rest day. Made me sit in a hotel room because it was raining outside, so I couldn't do anything. I'm not a huge fan of TV or watching TV, so I sat in my hotel room. I watched the rain hit the window. I read a little bit, thought about life, thought about where I was, journaled a little bit, and that was cool. Trained with fellow Globetrotters, of course, using the Globetrotters as a network to be like, hey, where can I train? Just meeting cool people. Someone I met in Estonia, at an Estonia camp, happened to be in the same city I was in South Dakota at the time. No clue how that happened. And I was like, you're here? And right, we hung out and it was great. And this was also getting ready for next year. I plan to ride a motorcycle across the Gobi Desert in Mongolia. So there's a huge ride. It's like 2,200 kilometers, I believe, across the sands of the Gobi Desert in Mongolia. I have a friend, same friend who I climbed Kilimanjaro with. We're always looking for just shit to do and shit to like challenge each other. But he was like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I want to ride a motorcycle really far. And he was like, oh, I heard of this. I hadn't heard of it. And he like pulled up this company that does this ride across the Gobi Desert in Mongolia. And I was like, that. He's like, I don't know how to ride a motorcycle. I'm like, you better figure it out. And so he's currently trying to figure it out. So we'll see.
We've glazed over like Globetrotters a little bit. And can you tell me about like, how did you discover Globetrotters and what it meant to you? What'd you learn from it?
So the same annoying guy, Jake, that got me into jiu-jitsu, that wouldn't shut up about jiu-jitsu, he also told me about this camp that he went to. And I had the thought, I'm just a new white belt. I can't go do that yet. I have to wait. And then you realize, and I went, and it was really cool. What that started, it got the ball rolling of helping me build my confidence and knowing what I'm really good at. What I'm really good at is talking to people and connecting with people and just really like trying to blossom that. And I met Michael Courier. I met all, right, like you can name all the names, but Michael Courier stands out because we were sitting in Jay's gym in Arizona, just talking, and he like looks at me. He's like, you haven't even figured out what you're capable of yet, have you? And like he was just talking about life, not about jiu-jitsu. And I was like, I think you're absolutely right. Right? I don't even know what I'm capable of yet. And again, I still remember that, which is pretty impactful. And like I walked away with that. I'm like, I have no clue what I'm capable of. Like that could be scary, but it could also be really fucking cool. Because now it's like, what am I capable of? What can I do? And if I'm capable of anything, then I'm going to pick something and go do it. And right, fast forward to where we are today. I'm on camp 11 for the Globetrotters camps. I've also done 4 or 5 gentle art lifestyle camps with Josh Janis. So right, I'm all in. I met my wife at the USA camp. I got married at Arizona camp. We honeymooned at Camp 100 in Italy, which again was just like another cool aspect of jiu-jitsu. And Rachel and I talked a bit about this while we were in Rome. And you turn the corner and you're like, hey, that's a Globetrotter shirt. I don't know you, but you're now my friend, right? Where are you going? What are you doing? All of a sudden, like you go from walking with 2 people to 5. And then, a couple people are meeting here for dinner at this square in Rome by the Spanish Steps, whatever. All right, you go there. All of a sudden, there's 22 people sitting at a table eating fresh pasta and drinking wine. And you're like, right, if had the layman, the layman, gone to Italy with their spouse, that's who they have. And if they're lucky, maybe they interact with one other person, 2 other people, in passing or, at the Spanish Steps or at Trevi Fountain or, right, maybe they make a lifelong friend if they're really lucky. But then there's us. There's the Globetrotters where it's just like, I met, 120 people. Some I knew, some I didn't know in Italy, right? I've been to Estonia camp, handful of people there. Like, it's insane. It's insane again, jiu-jitsu is not about jiu-jitsu.
And you've even instructed or had mat chats, and you mentioned Gentle Arts Lifestyle Camp, which is Josh Janis's camp in Minnesota, I believe, and Globetrotters, you've participated in some of those. What have you taught, number one, at these things?
So Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Gentle Art Lifestyle camps. At those camps, I teach the yoga for the camps, and it's awesome to be a part of that. With Globetrotters, I've taught multiple chats, often about goal setting. Right, like off the mat chats of goal setting and how to accomplish the things you want in life, both in jiu-jitsu and not in jiu-jitsu. Italy, I got to teach yoga at Camp 100, which was awesome. So that was my first time getting to teach yoga at a Globetrotters camp officially. And I am now scheduled to teach yoga at Zen Camp in Poland in May. So I am officially the yoga teacher there. I'm really excited about that. I will say, back to your goals thing, I absolutely want to get a black belt because I would love to teach jiu-jitsu at a Globetrotters camp.
Can you give us, the high level of your goal setting talks at these mat chats at, Globetrotters? Because I know that could be an entire episode probably.
100% I can. The long version of it is 3 hours long. The Globetrotter version is an hour and a half. And the short few word version is you are going to die. And that is the gist of my workshop is you are going to die. And when you understand that you're going to die, now what? Because you don't know when, right? It could be tomorrow and it could be when you're 80. And the big thing that I say is you should live your life like you're going to die tomorrow, but live till you're 80. And that's covers hopefully all loopholes. Because if you knew you were going to die tomorrow, you might do some very questionable things, both ethically and morally, like whatever those things might be. If you knew you were going to die tomorrow, you do those, but don't do those because you're probably going to live till you're 80, likely, right? So live like you're going to die tomorrow, but like you're going to live till you're 80. And I think that's the biggest advice that I can give from those workshops is that if you're doing something, you wake up and you hate your life and you hate what you're doing, really good news is you can change that. If you're a worst case scenario type person, really think about that. What's the worst case scenario? You lose all your money and your home and you have to start over? Okay, did you die? Maybe the worst case scenario is you die, but that's going to happen anyway. So if you already know, hey, I'm going to die and I want to set a good example for my children. I don't want to be the person on my deathbed with regrets, wishing that I had traveled to Italy. I've heard the stories. I've heard my friend's mother just passed away a few months ago and a really aggressive cancer happened really quickly. And I think she had like a month and a half of life left after she was diagnosed. Again, really aggressive, really quick. And she told her, she's like, I never got to go to Ireland. It's like, fuck. If I have advice for anyone, it's like, go to fucking Ireland. Go. Figure it out. And I get it. You have kids and you have this and you have families, but a lot of our stories get in the way. A lot of our stories about what we need in life or how we're supposed to, I just want to give my kid everything. If you want to give your kid everything, go and show them what everything actually looks like, because a fat bank account isn't everything. A parent that works 80 hours a week, they only see their parents on the weekend and you're sitting on a couch watching TV and you're overweight and you would do this thing if you weren't so tired all the time, and I'm tired all the time because I work. No, like, is that everything? Because it sounds like a shitty version of everything if that's what you're looking to give your kid. A lot of my coaching is real and honest and some people don't like it, and that's cool. It's not for them. One last thing, in all of it, like, say yes. Get out of your own way. Say yes to things. So divorce, jobless, almost homeless, quote homeless, and I'm sitting in Milwaukee winter camp with Josh and Megan, and they're like, hey, we're going to Estonia in April, want to come? And I was like, no, I can't. And they both sort of like looked at me like a dog, like cocked head, and like, I'm sorry, what? What do you mean you can't? And it was that look of, wait, why did I say that? Why can't I come? It was then that I was like, oh shit, like I need to go do that. And I probably need to do a million other things along the way. So get out of your own way. Say yes to things.
Well, Alan, if the listener viewer wants to get more information about you and everything you're up to, where can they go?
Really follow us on Instagram at Karma Jiu-Jitsu, literally KarmaJiujitsu, all one word. You can find us karmajujitsu.com on our website. You can find me on Instagram as well at the life of Alan Titone, underscores between each word. My website, alantitone.com. But yeah, reach out, phone, call, text, email. I love talking to new people. I love meeting new people.
Well, everyone, I'm your host, Adolfo Ferranda. Don't forget to give us a nice review, subscribe, thumbs up, and the whole thing. Consider being a VIP member, only $1 a month, and you get all the good early stuff. So, Alan, thanks so much, man. I'm so glad we made some time to have this conversation. I find you to be a really interesting guy, and I really resonate with a lot of your message and your viewpoints. So thanks so much for making time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be on, and I'm glad we did have this conversation.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Well, we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.